to the Return of Godzillathon. Today we are tackling Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, one of the all-time fan favorites in the franchise. On previous successes of Godzilla sharing the screen with Kong and Godzilla sharing the screen with Mothra, it did seem to make sense that he would share the screen with Rodan next, but no, they decided to really go big. They said, let's put Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra in the same film and give them a new foe to join forces against. In Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, a monster that has since gone on to be Godzilla's greatest enemy, and what an introduction. The film starts with a meteor shower and some discussion about brainwaves. One meteor hits the Earth. While this is going on, we have a princess coming to Japan. Her nation, they mention, might go the other way, i.e. communism, and there has been talk and discussion that Ghidorah is kind of supposed to represent communist China. And if that's true and you go by this, I wonder if the country this woman comes from is supposed to represent Vietnam, which was looking like it might go the other way at the time, and it did. Just an interesting thought. She hears this voice tell her to just leave the plane, that she opens up the door and it explodes, and she's found throughout Japan prophesying that this month that tragedies are coming. She prophesies the return of Rodan and talks about King Ghidorah and how he destroyed their, what she calls now her home world, which I believe in the Japanese version is Venus, but the American dub, they changed it to Mars. But they do a good job of building up the hype around Ghidorah before you see him. While this is going on, you have the police officer who was supposed to meet her at the airport investigating this. His sister's an investigative journalist, and she's trying to do a story. And you have assassins in the country looking for the princess to kill her. So there's a lot going on. Plus, the sister character, she's dating this scientist who's studying the meteor that we know is going to be King Ghidorah. And they do a great job here too, because there's a nice sense of foreboding with the music around the meteor, and every now and then it will manifest strange magnetic properties and it starts growing. Now, meteor. For those of you familiar with the original Blob, we all know good things do not come from meteors in these movies. But I like it. We got a little bit of a plot of political intrigue, a scientific mystery, and a supernatural thriller in a way, all going on at the same time. And they all coerce nicely. We get reintroduced to the Sobajin, who are guests on this variety talk show, and we find out one of the Mothra larvae died. So there's just one. Things really start to ramp up once Rodan awakens. And what's funny, we get a scene where the wind blows a guy's hat into the crater of the volcano, and this one guy's like, I'll get your hat for you, 1,000 yen. That may sound like a lot by American money, but you see this? This is a 500 yen piece. At the very most, it's equal to $5 American. It's probably closer to like $3.50, somewhere around there, but it was a lot more back then. But yeah, to crawl into the mouth of a volcano and not even make $10. Just wow. Rodan emerges from the volcano, and what I think had happened was, because this film finally does converge all the monsters if you take the events of the first Rodan into account. This is where those two Rodans laid an egg, and this is just that one emerging. We get we get Godzilla showing up, and we also, while this is going, we have the Martian girl princess prophesying that the ship's gonna be doomed. The fairies get off of it. It leads to a first encounter at a hotel room where they're saved. Godzilla shows up, destroys the cruise ship, and gets drawn in by Rodan, who he wants to fight. And we get Ghidorah emerging from the meteor, which is one of the all-time iconic shots in the franchise. Ghidorah goes on his rampage. While this is going on, Godzilla and Rodan are fighting. There's this government press conference in the Shobijin offer that the idea that Mothra can't stop Ghidorah alone, but Mothra might be able to convince Rodan and Godzilla to work together. And together, these three monsters might stand a chance against this one monster. So they agree to do it. Godzilla and Rodan are fighting, and like this movie, Rodan is able to really go toe-to-toe with Godzilla. It really makes him out to be a powerhouse, as well as the strategic guy in the fight. That's to come. We have more stuff going on where a psychiatrist is trying to hypnotize the princess and get to the bottom of what's happening, with another altercation with the assassins. She's actually saved by Rodan dropping Godzilla on high tension wires because the assassins turn the meter of the electroshock machine all the way up. Why you could set something like that to a lethal voltage is beyond me. And it all coerces to a scene where Mothra shows up, sprays Godzilla, Rodan laughs, then she sprays Rodan, Godzilla laughs, and that it's a great scene where three monsters are discussing the fate of humanity, and both Godzilla and Rodan are like, humans hate us, why should we help them? Why should we care if they purchase? And Mothra just gives up and goes to face Ghidorah alone. And after a little bit of seeing how just unfair and just unwinnable of a fight this is, the circumstances with Godzilla's fight can't even be replicated here. Godzilla and Rodan show up. My guess is Godzilla and Rodan were probably like, look, you don't like me, and I definitely don't like you. But if we let the kid do the fighting for us, we're not going to like ourselves. And it's a nice scene. We see Godzilla show up, he throws rocks, Rodan attacks Ghidorah, gets him to fly after him. Godzilla has Mothra bite his tail to get her up the side of the hill faster. And we see Rodan really being the one directing at places. This is how we do the fight. And one of the things I like, and probably one of my favorite moments in the film, is because this is in a village and it causes a rock slide, and we hear one of the guys say, "My village, my home is gone." And even though the stakes are the world at this point, that village was probably that man's ancestral home. So for him, that was his whole world. And this is how I like Godzilla best, as a force of nature. I have an analogy of a hurricane. The rains from a hurricane can technically put out a raging forest fire, but what damage are the winds and the rains of the hurricane going to do? He's still a force of nature. His existence is still going to cause destruction. While this is going on, there's a shootout with the last assassin. They were mostly all taken out inadvertently by Godzilla. The princess gets her memory back after a bullet grazed her. And when it looks like they're both going to be killed, the assassin gets killed with falling rocks, Rodan actually directs Mothra get on his back, and while Godzilla's distracting, fighting Ghidorah and holding him back using his power, you got the combination of Rodan's mobility and Mothra's webbing cocooning Ghidorah up. They throw Ghidorah off the side of the mountain, who presumably retreats into space, and it all wraps up nicely. The three monsters celebrate. The princess goes back to her country. The Shobijin and Mothra return to Infant Island, and Godzilla and Rodan are seemingly not enemies anymore. Wraps up really nicely. The effects, I think, are great in this. The music is used to perfection, from that kind of ominous music they use for the meteor that just, nothing good is going to come to this, to the more thrilling music that plays during some of the scenes where they're fighting off the assassins, or the music that plays when they're fighting Ghidorah that does have that epic sort of power to it, but it also almost has the slightest undercurrent of sadness as they're destroying these people's homes as they're fighting. This is one of my all-time favorite Godzilla movies. Now, I'll touch up on it now, but the next is Godzilla Invasion of Astro Monster, or Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, where it has to do with aliens and they're controlling Ghidorah. My theory is they were even controlling him in this film. They just sent him to Earth, not aware of both Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra, which Mothra was cut out for budget reasons, but whatever. And once they realized Ghidorah couldn't handle the invasion by himself, they needed a plot to get Godzilla and Rodan to their planet to control them so they can go through with their plan, but I'll talk about that when we get to that movie. Again, very high recommend A+ material Godzilla movie. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Over and out.